this, and this will be my pay-per-view review for TNA Slammiversary, which happened tonight. I know most people are probably expecting my next video to be the ROH pay-per-view, but honestly, I just haven't felt like watching it. I have it on my DVR. I just haven't felt like watching it. Haven't felt like watching a lot of wrestling, but I figured I would actually watch this tonight, which was good. I actually really enjoyed this pay-per-view. I thought this was a really good effort from TNA, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So let's get on with this. I didn't see the pre-show match with Rhino and I guess Eric Young walking out and his student coming and helping him, and then or whoever, and then the British Invasion. I didn't see that. Saw the after effects. Saw like the last 2 seconds of the match, so I won't even really talk about that. But yeah. Anyways, that's why it's not on here for those before anybody asks. I started the night out with the King of the Mountain X Division title match, which, you know, it's TNA, so I'm going to take logic a bit out of the window. Why you would have 4 guys taking on 1 and then them not just beat... Well, I guess they did kind of beat the holy hell out of him, but not really. This was very spotty. This, to me, is the definition of what a spot fest is. Not necessarily a bad thing, but there was points where they were just going for spots to go for spots to kind of wow the crowd instead of doing things that actually made sense, and we actually saw more of that in the main event. So they probably booked it so it wouldn't hurt the main event so much, but this was more just kind of there. Like I said, there was a lot of good spots. The Motor City Machine Guns looked really good. You know, Lethal Consequences looked good. Suicide looked good. Everybody looked good. There were a couple of crazy spots. There was a couple of crazy ladder spots. It was crazy, but and like I said, it just was missing some sort of, you know, storyline, anything kind of going into it. And why weren't the 4 guys trying to unmask, you know, Suicide? That was the other thing. I was, you know, through the whole, I was like, you know, aren't they supposed to be? Anyways, it was kind of strange and odd, but the match was fun to watch and had a lot of wow moments. So it was a good match. So there we go. Then we went to Daniels versus Shane Douglas. Why this was on this pay-per-view, I have no idea. I could think of a lot better ways to use Shane Douglas than to put him in a match with Christopher Daniels. Really could. But match was not very good. Was just kind of there. And yeah, that's about all I have with that. Next we had Angelina Love versus Tara. This was much better than some of the stuff we have seen from the knockouts, but still not, you know, up to I think the quality a lot of people think it should be. But at least we're starting to see some better stuff. This was very well booked, I will say this, and the match itself made a lot of sense. This is probably one of the few matches on here that a lot of the undercard stuff made, the stuff that was just kind of, you would think, just kind of thrown out there, made a lot of sense. It was the stuff that was, you know, the main stuff on this pay-per-view. Just some of it didn't make sense. But this was booked very well. The match just wasn't as good as you had hoped. It was a little sloppy in some parts, but it was okay. It was what it was. Then we went to Raven and Daffney versus Abyss and Miss Wilde. This was surprisingly good. And it was mainly due to the women. Daffney and Miss Wilde went out there and busted their asses. Daffney actually got slammed into some thumbtacks, which was kind of a oh my god moment, because you just wasn't expecting that, especially since they had done a spot before, going through a table. It was a good garbage match. It was really fun, really enjoyable. And I would recommend seeing it, even though it's not a great match, but it is a fun little match. So that was good to see. Next we had Matt Morgan versus Sting. Not too great. I will say this: either Matt Morgan finally got it, or they told Matt Morgan that he needed to do this, which was wrestle like a big, powerful guy instead of just a wrestle like a regular guy who just happened to be big, because that's my biggest problem with Matt Morgan. He's a big guy. Let him, you know, wrestle as a power guy. He was in there with Sting. Not a lot he could do with Sting, but they did go out there. They did put it on I thought a pretty good match. I was into it, and I liked it far better than I thought I was going to. So there is that. Next we had Team 3D versus Beer Money. Very good match. My only complaint is actually with the end, with the British Invasion coming out. My problem isn't necessarily with them coming out, but the fact that they came out, were at the commentary table, which was funny and added some funny moments, but it seemed very impacty to me that they were out there like that. And then they did the interference, which you knew was going to happen. But other than that, it was, and that's a very, very minor gripe. This was much like all the other Team 3D versus Beer Money matches they've had. Good, solid match, very enjoyable, a lot of fun. So there was that. We actually, although we did we miss? Was it the table spot we missed? I think it was. I think so. I can't remember. The production crew was in their normal TNA form. There was a lot of missed spots and a lot of weird stuff like that was just missed. Then we got the main event, the King of the Mat match for the world title. This was, I thought, very good, or I thought it was great. Except for the very, very end, but like I said, it's TNA, so I'm willing to kind of let logic kind of go out of the window and just enjoy the match. This was a lot of fun. You had Mick Foley doing a crazy spot off the top of the penalty box. You had AJ and Joe do a couple crazy spots. Joe looked like he almost killed himself twice, coming off the ladder. But it was, you know, and Angle was out there and he did his thing. Jeff Jarrett did his. It was everything you thought it was. And then we got to the end and we found out, I guess, that the mentor that has been with Joe, we all kind of figured we would see whoever this was at this pay-per-view. Got to the end of the pay-per-view. Not Taz. Oh no. It's freaking Kurt Angle. Yes, they embraced and kissed at the top of the ladder, and Joe gave Kurt the title, and that was it. And I guess now he's in the main event Mafia, and makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But it is, I guess it's interesting in that it was a swerve that, it was one of those weird swerves that no one ever saw coming, so that was a bit shocking, unlike a lot of TNA swerves that you usually see coming, and you're like, this is going to suck anyways. But not too much sense to it, but it was kind of there. Overall, I thought this was a fun pay-per-view. I had fun watching the pay-per-view, which, to be honest, I just, after the Masawa stuff, there was a lot of, I just didn't feel like watching much wrestling this week. That's why I didn't watch the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Now, even though I've already saw it, I was there live when they taped it, but, and I do plan on doing that because I want to talk about the pay-per-view and them not re-upping the pay-per-view deal and all that, and kind of why I think it's a good thing. But you know, overall, I thought this was a very good pay-per-view. This is one of the better pay-per-views TNA's put on in a while. I'm usually not. There was a lot of Slammiversaries I have not enjoyed, but when other people have, that I really enjoyed this show. Like I said, I thought the X Division match was a lot of fun. You know, there were just points where I was just kind of screaming at the match, going, why aren't you guys doing this or this? But that was really the only match I was really like that with. And like I said, the Monsters Ball match, you know, that was a lot of fun. And if you like hardcore matches, I would recommend seeing that. And the King of the Mountain match itself, I thought was very entertaining. So there we go with that. I give this an 8.0. I really liked it, really enjoyed it. Thought it was one of the better TNA pay-per-views in a long time. So there we go. With that, I'm out. Have a good one. Later.